This is a call to stop purchasing game season passes, and I'll explain why. If you enjoyed this video today and you agree with my thoughts, please share it and also like the video. Current YouTube mechanics mean that the faster a video is interacted with, the more it's recommended. This helps me and the channel. So first off, let's roll back. Years ago, when DLC first started to become the norm, a bright spark somewhere thought, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could reward our players by bundling all the content for our game together and give the player a small discount? Plus, they can buy it ahead of release and maybe we give them a token gift. And thus, season passes would be born. However, back when this idea was first unleashed, it made more sense. Why? Because games around the time were the Black Ops, the Battlefield 3s, the games were not yet heavily cheapened by microtransactions and loot boxes, and also they seemed to actually give players what they wanted. This meant that when purchasing a season pass, you generally felt like you were going to stick around for the game and that the player base was going to stick around as well for the duration of that game. Now fast forward a few years and we reach games like Battlefield Hardline, Star Wars Battlefront and The Division. All games which hemorrhaged players and were left hollow with barely a player base to carry forward. I remember people saying with Battlefield Hardline that when the first DLC came around, they were unable to even get games with other people. And this leaves the season pass purchaser in a difficult position. Even if you yourself are still enjoying the game, maybe not that many others are. And so the adage of I paid my money, I'll do what I want, it might actually not even be possible. And that means the upcoming DLC that's part of your already fully paid season pass might be close to, if not actually, unplayable. Essentially, with a season pass, you're being asked to pay up for content that you cannot know if it will even be viable when it's released. This is the problem now with season passes. New game releases have ever more unstable audiences, and it really is anybody's guess as to whether something will be a success or not. And that's only in the short term, let alone 4 to 6 months time, let alone if the publisher does something really incredibly stupid, like say put a system in place that allows players to purchase actual game items through loot crates, something incredibly stupid like that then subsequently goes on to alienate the player base before the game has barely even released. Season passes used to be an easy way to save a little bit of money, but now they look like a foolish gamble. By buying a season pass, you make a small saving, but you invest in a huge risk. Will players be there to play that content that you have invested in? How do you know? Flip a coin, because the chances are probably worse than 50-50 at this point. Let's imagine if somebody comes up to you in the street and they said, hand me $60 and we'll toss a coin. And if you win, you just get to keep your money. Well, that's essentially what you're doing when you invest in a season pass for a game. The concept is essentially heavily flawed for the buyer at this point, and all you're doing is helping a big company minimize their financial risk. It's why publishers like EA, Ubisoft and Activision push season passes so hard pre-release, because it gives them some solid numbers for them to stack up against their development costs. The way DLC used to work was that instead of creating all the content ahead of time, developers would wait to see if the community was there. They might have one DLC ready for a little bit down the line, but they would essentially wait to see what kind of player base they had and if it was ready for more content. Games like Company of Heroes and the Total War series have handled this, where they retain a solid player base and then periodically give that player base an update. This is really how DLC works best. Updating content should work with a player base, not split a community. And games like Arma 3 have achieved this by making DLC content visible, but not actively segregating players. A problem that modern FPS still struggle with by releasing map packs which progressively fragment and split its community. Plus, we haven't even touched on the issue of content masquerading as DLC when it probably should have been included in the base game. That's unfortunately a more subjective issue, but one that we probably have all experienced. Season passes at this point should be easily consigned to history. We just need to stop buying them. So with your next big game purchase, don't let yourself be dazzled by the shiny things marketing dangles in front of you. Have some restraint. Wait for the game to release, and then a few months later, if it's looking strong, guess what? You can probably still purchase a full DLC pack of content with the savings intact should you wish to do so. You might just have to forfeit that pre-release shiny thing, which you've got to ask, Is it worth risking $60 for a shiny aesthetic that is only going to tell other people you just bought a season pass? As always guys, tell me your thoughts about season passes and how DLC are delivered in games in the comments down below. This is Luton, and I'll see you next time.